Hey guys, what's up? This is Robert Crumb, the documentary. So this is a documentary of an artist called Robert Crumb. And Robert Crumb, basically that's him. And he basically was an artist back in the 60s for underground comics. And underground comics is basically these kind of like lewd, offensive, like comics that are kind of inked and everything that were not like, they weren't the mainstream comics. The mainstream comics was like Marvel and DC at the time and all these like comic book people for kids and stuff like that, or grown-ups and whatever. But this guy made like comics for adults, and they were lewd and they were like cheeky and a little bit offensive to some people. Sometimes they could be sexist. And he makes a lot of these characters and things like that. And basically it's a documentary about him. And it's a documentary about Robert Crumb. So this guy's really interesting person. He grew up in the 60s, and so a lot of his friends were like hippies. He was in California at the time, I think in San Francisco or one of the areas close there, where all the hippies were, and he hung out with people like the hippies and stuff like that. And he hung out in these art studios with other artists that were also making these like underground comics. And the thing about underground comics is like, they were just like uncensored, they were explicit, they were funny, they were like, they were like, you know, they were sexist. They were like, they were just these like sort of like uncensored kind of adult content kind of, but at the same time, like, you know, like kind of like funny comics, sort of like juvenile, it's kind of like juvenile sort of adult comics and stuff like that. So you can see some of his stuff on, you know, some of his work. He did a lot of comic books that you can still get them now at the comic book store. And they're just called, I think they're Zap. There's just like a ton of Robert Crumb comics, and they're not like expertly drawn, but his characters are cool, and it's kind of humorous. It's kind of weird at the same time. It's unusual and stuff like that. And he's basically this dude, and he's kind of like a little bit of a nerdy guy. He just looks nerdy. Like, he's tall and skinny. He's got big glasses. In the back, you can see also like he's like, that's basically, I don't know, they put the girl there and him in front of her like that. And so, you know, he kind of looks like that. He grew up, he wasn't really into anything. And then he found that he would just draw. And that was the only thing kind of like, well, according to Robert Crumb, drawing was the only thing that kept him sane, you know, and, you know, everything else wasn't a good time for him. Like, school wasn't a good time. Growing up wasn't a good time. His first marriage was not a good time. So he would go into drawing comics and drawing these like inky comics. And basically it would be a lot of pencil and ink drawing. He didn't do a lot of full color comics, but some of the stuff that he can do. He was doing work for, according to the back of the documentary, he was doing work for Zap Comics. It does say here like Zap Comics and Mr. Natural and Fritz the Cat. So have you ever heard of Fritz the Cat? Basically, he made Fritz the Cat. So it's that kind of stuff. And the thing about, like, it's interesting because the whole documentary starts with him talking in front of a room full of people about Fritz the Cat and how that was his most popular thing that most people heard of from him. But that was the thing that he made like no money from, because all of the people that were working with him, they got him to sign these contracts that basically made them keep all the money and them get all the rights to Fritz the Cat and gave him nothing. So he got really, really ripped off by a lot of contracts from these other people that just basically took all the credit for Fritz the Cat, all the money from Fritz the Cat. And people, like, Fritz the Cat is still selling. People are still buying Fritz the Cat DVDs and downloads and stuff like that. It's still selling. It's still a product that's selling right now. But Robert Crumb is not making any money from it because of the contracts that he wrote. Right now, what happened, currently, Robert Crumb is living in France with his wife. He has some kids and stuff like that, and he's doing this sort of like musical band kind of thing, where it's like a jug band 50s blues thing. I don't know. And he's kind of doing that. He's kind of doing like, he's still making drawings and comics and stuff like that. But right now his drawings and his art is really, really big, and it's expensive, and it's in high demand. Like, he just makes art right now as an artist and sells it as original pieces or prints, but it's in high demand. And the reason that it's in such high demand partly is because of this documentary that made him popular. Like, Underground Comics made him popular, Fritz the Cat made him popular. A lot of his, you know, a lot of the people that are into comics like know who he is, but a lot of people did not know who he was until really the DVD came out. And it really did tell you like who this person was, how he's been around since the 60s. And he's still, like, he's older now, but he's like still making comics and still drawing and stuff like that. So like, the back of the thing is like, basically this was also done by Terry Zwigoff, and it was also done by what's his name? David Lynch, who did Dune, the 1984 Dune movie. So David Lynch did this, and Terry Zwigoff did this, and and basically that's kind of what it is. Like, he's just been making these funny comics and these little drawings and stuff, but a lot of the drawings are like overly sexualized. They're you could say like some of them are like offensive to certain people, but he likes them because they're funny, and you know, it's just something that he does and something that he draws, and he's just a person who just likes to draw, and he made a whole career out of it. And a lot of the art and everything that he was doing for Underground Comics is just like, after this documentary came out and in the modern times, it's just like, it just keeps getting popular. It's like Underground Comics is still, you could still buy the old issues. They're still in print. You can still buy the old issues from comic book stores, and they're just like, I think there's like 10 or 20, or there's a whole bunch. You can buy like, they're all numbered and stuff like that, and they're all have these kind of like funny but weird, you know, offensive sort of, but in a comedic way, you know, like comedians that are kind of offensive, but at the same time they're trying to be funny, and then they don't really mean it as an offensive thing. They're just trying to make a joke out of it. And so you have Robert Crumb. So on the back of it, it says it's a great film, astonishing from Siskel and Ebert. And yeah, this is a great documentary because this is the life of this guy. It's interesting about the kind of art that he makes. I wouldn't say it's great art, but I don't think it's supposed to be great art. It's just these little cartoons that he draws, and he's good at them, and they're funny, and they're like cute. They're like clever, and they're just like they're cheeky. You know, they're a little bit offensive. So on the back of the thing, it says, from director Terry Zwigoff, Ghost World, Bad Santa, and the upcoming Art School Confidential, comes one of the most critically acclaimed films ever made. Which I don't think this is a critically, I mean, it's a documentary, and maybe it's a critically acclaimed documentary, but it says film, and I don't think this is really a film. This is a documentary. It's 100%, you know, you don't want to expect this to be a film. It's not a film. It's a documentary about this guy and his art. But it does say the film ever made. A hilarious and mysterious journey through artistic genius and sexual obsession, yeah, he draws his sexual obsessions, like his fetishes, the things that he likes. Like, he likes like women with like thick like legs, basically, or like thick hairy legs and stuff like that and stuff. So he draws a lot of that. He draws like a certain body type of women that he draws. They're just kind of like these like thick women, especially with like thick legs and stuff like that. And they're weird. It's not like the common thing that, you know, society says is a sexy kind of look. It's more of like his idea of what turns him on, or what's sexy for him. you know, and that's the thing, you know, so that's the thing about that, and that's probably because of the whole thing. That's why you got the girl with the skirt and everything like that. And it says here, Crumb is a wild ride through from the mind of R. Crumb, creator of Zap Comics, Mr. Natural, Fritz the Cat. So I don't know about Zap Comics. I don't know if I've seen his Zap Comics. His Mr. Natural stuff is kind of silly. It's basically this little dude who's like 4.5 feet tall or something like that. It's like less than 5 feet tall with a huge beard. And he's Mr. Natural. And basically Mr. Natural is like this, sort of like this weird guru guy that kind of has advice for everything. Like that sad guru guy on YouTube, you know, like that's like, he kind of has advice for everything. And people would just like ask him, oh, Mr. Natural, what do you think I should do with this? Or can you give me advice? And Mr. Natural always like, he's kind of slick. Mr. Natural is sort of like the hippie Bugs Bunny. He's kind of slick like Bugs Bunny, but he's also kind of like hippie, and he's got this long beard, and he's just like this funny guy because he's like only 4 feet tall or something, but his beard almost comes down to the floor. So this is the kind of like art that R. Crumb draws, these kind of silly pictures. I don't know what Zap Comics is. Fritz the Cat is this cat dude. I saw Fritz the Cat also on DVD like years ago. I wouldn't think of watching it again. It's just this like weird cat, like who it's just the adventures of this cat, you know. It's like this it's sort of like a Bugs Bunny kind of character, but it's a cat, you know, and it's sort of the adventures of Fritz the Cat. And Fritz the Cat, I don't know, he goes into these adventures, I don't know, he has beers and stuff like that. He's just this cat, and that's just kind of like what he drew. I actually like, out of all of the stuff that he made, I like Fritz the Cat the most because it just feels like more of a real animated movie, and it's a fun animated movie, and it's really enjoyable. Crumb enters a territory as spooky as it is fascinating. There's nothing spooky about it though. It's not a spooky thing at all. There's nothing. He doesn't draw anything spooky. It's just silly cartoons that are kind of like sexualized, but it's his view of what it should be. A portrait of the artist as misanthrope, as bad boy visionary, as Joker and sex maniac, and finally as hero. One of those rare film experiences that has the giddy effect of being a nightmare and a party at the same time. Extraordinary, from Entertainment Weekly. Yeah, no, well, you know, it's not like a night. I don't know why they keep saying it's spooky and it's a nightmare. It's not. It's funny and it's lighthearted. But what's interesting about Crumb is when he narrates the whole documentary. So he's kind of like always. He's kind of like this low energy kind of like dude. It's sort of like what's his name? Like that dude. What's his name? Napoleon Dynamite. It's sort of like that kind of like low energy talk. Sort of like you get in no. What's his name? Napoleon Dynamite? Sort of like that. And then it says here on the front, it says, a great film. I'm sure I won't see a better film this year. Gene Siskel from Siskel and Ebert. This is not true also. It's not the best film. It's not even a film. It's a documentary. And I think that's all of the stuff on the cover is just to sell the DVD. And the thing is about the DVD, and when I picked it up and I went in there and I opened it up and I looked inside, and my disc isn't in there. And I'm like, damn it, how am I gonna, what if I want to see this again? Like, where did I put the disc? I put it somewhere. I put the disc somewhere. I don't know, it's not in the case. And I don't know where it went. And, you know, geez, I'll find it somewhere. It's like, this is one of the things that, like, this is hard to get. It's not like, you could probably get it streaming for like $2.99 or whatever. You could probably get the disc, like, you know, you could buy the disc, it's still available. But the thing is, it's like, it's not like this disc, you kind of have to buy it because you can't, like, there's no more like video stores or anything like that. So you have to either stream it down, which they have, and I think you can see this on, or parts of it, you can see this on YouTube. So I would check there first if you haven't seen this yet. Because on YouTube, they've got clips of this. They've got a lot of content from a lot of other documentaries that R. Crumb did. He did another documentary, which is sort of like this, but this one's better. The other one's a little bit more boring. It's not as good as this one. This one's fun to watch. It's exciting. It's about this guy, how he grows up, how like the only thing he kind of has in his life that's given him any pleasure is drawing, and how he's always been drawing, and he's like, he'll use like pen and ink to draw with, and everything is like inked. He doesn't use a lot of color. He doesn't use like pencil as much, or he'll ink over his pencil so it just looks inked and stuff like that. His characters are caricature characters. They're not like realistic looking characters. However, he does have the skills to make realistic portraits of people and draw people as they really look. So he does that also. He's a really good artist. It's just that he chose to draw things in, he just chose to draw things in caricature, in cartoons, sort of like animated, comic book, kind of fun stuff. And the kind of content they did for Underground Comics was like adult content. It was stuff that you couldn't find in the comic book store or in a bookstore or in a newsstand. Like regular comics, you can get them at a newsstand, you can get them in a bookshop or a comic book store. But Underground Comics, they wouldn't allow that in those stores at the time. Now people are like a lot more liberal, but you'd still like, you know, they're not like in the adult section of the store, but sometimes they are, you know. But the thing is that like, but in comic book stores, you can get them. They're just like they're in the R. Crumb section because he's popular enough among comic book people that people know who he is and they come in and buy his books, a lot of it. But in my opinion, it's not something I really collected. I looked through the stuff. I wanted to get one. I have never bought one. I wanted to get one. I looked through some, I read through some, and I just found that like it didn't really speak to me too much. I didn't think it was that funny. I didn't think it was like worth spending money on. It just wasn't the thing that I really enjoyed, the kind of comic, but it was not supposed to be. It's just supposed to be kind of like rude, offensive, funny, and weird, like quirky and weird and, you know, just silly. But for some reason I never bought one, even though I wanted to buy one, even though sometimes these things, they go up in price sometimes with these comics, but I've just found that they're still making these, like, they're still printing them. So how are they going to ever go up in price if they keep on making more and more of them? You know, it's not like a rare thing at all. But I don't know. So I never actually got one. It's just because like the comic books I like are generally full color comic books, and I never usually buy the black and white inked comic books. I just don't like them that much. So I never buy them. And I think that's probably the reason I didn't buy the Underground Comics, because they're all like pen and ink and they're not like full color. And I don't like that. Like I bought not a Druna, what's his name? Like, you know, I bought like, they you know how they have like in the comic book shop, they've got like the sealed, they put the plastic over the comic book and you can't look inside and stuff like that. You have to kind of buy it, but you have no idea what's inside of it. And so I bought one, and what happened was it was an artist I like, it was a story I liked, so I bought it, and then when I opened it up, it was all black and white. And I'm just like, even though it was interesting, like what I read from it was interesting and it was entertaining. At the same time, it was like I really wished it was in full color, and if I knew it was going to be in black and white, I would have not got it. And that's probably why I didn't get into the Underground Comics, because they're in black and white. Some of them are in color, but most of them are like, a lot of them are in black and white. And I've read the stories and they're just silly and funny. They're not really the kind of comics I like, which is like fantasy and story comics and action comics and, you know, just like stuff that is really good literature, like really good stories and really good art, and it's in full color, and that's really what I like about that's really the comics that I usually get. So even though I was thinking of getting those, they were, I think, just each one was around $20, or it was less than $20, but I just felt like like I was really thinking about it. I was like, should I get one of these? Like, I don't know. I didn't know which one to get either, because they're all different. And I tried to recognize some of the characters in the underground comics, but I couldn't really, it wasn't anything I knew. It was just a lot of stuff I've never heard of, so I ended up not getting it. But it's definitely worth getting. It's, you know, if you're into that kind of thing, if you think it's funny and whatever. But yeah, but okay, so the disc also, if you get the disc, this one, this version, this disc has special features, which is digitally remastered for the best picture and sound. I never, like, whenever something is digitally remastered, it never looks any better than the previous version. So I don't know why they say that. They must have just, like, you know, put it on the mixing computer and turn the knobs a little bit, because they really didn't do too much of it. Roger Ebert and Terry Zwigoff audio commentary, which I don't usually listen to, but they do have a commentary of people talking over the documentary to say, oh, to say what they're thinking about it. But it just distracts from the actual documentary, and I don't really watch those. And then there's more exclusive scene from Terry Zwigoff's new film, Art School Confidential. That clip is really, really short. It's like a 5-minute clip, and it doesn't really do anything. It's not really impressive at anything. But this is actually a really good documentary. This is cool if you like comic books, if you like that kind of comic book humor, if you like art. The guy is a real artist, but he chooses to draw comics with his skills. You know, like his teachers were saying, you know, if he didn't, you know, they were saying Robert Crumb, right? They were saying like, oh, you know, if you really, you know, you have the potential of being a serious artist, you know, you can make real artwork. And he was just like, nah, I just want to draw my cartoons, you know, with my pen. And that's all he wanted to do. So the guy's doing what he loves. The guy's doing what he likes doing. He's older now, but he's still just as cool as he was in here. He's funny. He's got this like flat humor and stuff like that. Grew up back in the Haight-Ashbury hippie days and stuff like that, but he was never really a hippie. He never kind of understood the whole culture. He never got into it that much. He was just more like a comic book artist, and who never, for a very, very long time, got ripped off, never got credit for his work, never got paid a lot for his work. But then later on, when people found out who he was, and it was after the days of underground comics were gone, people start to hear about him. And of course, when someone makes a documentary film about you, or just documentary about you, then, you know, and it's in all the stores, and people hear about this, and Siskel and Ebert, you know, talk about it, and it's in Entertainment Weekly and whatever, you know, of course, a lot of people are going to hear about it. And this is something where not a lot of people heard about him, unless you were into that kind of thing. You know, it was a very, very cult following thing. It's a very, very B comic. It's not like a, you know, great comic. It's like a B, sort of like a B he he's proud of his stuff. So I definitely recommend this. Check it out. I don't know if you should buy it. I bought it and I enjoyed it. So I'm happy with this. But I know you can watch these. You can watch this. I don't know if you can see the whole thing, but you might see clips of it on YouTube. It's just like Robert Crumb, the documentary. And you can see bunches of clips on YouTube and stuff like that for free and things like that. And there's also a lot of other content with his stuff and his drawings and things like that for free. If you want to check it out, just click the, you know, just type him into the search engine. You're going to get a bunch of content with this guy and everything. So yeah. So let me know what you guys think in the comments. Have you ever seen this? You heard about this guy? What do you think about the underground comics and the whole thing? Yeah, thanks for watching, and yeah, like and subscribe to the channel, and I will see you guys in another video. Laters.